with the Rangers, who won a Stanley Cup with the franchise in 2023. The Islanders traded center Brock Nelson and minor leaguer William DeFore to the Avalanche. They get prospect Callum Ritchie, defenseman Oliver Killington, and a pair of conditional draft picks. Men's top 25 hoops last night, just one game. Number 8 Michigan State beat Iowa at 91-84. The Spartans take the outright Big Ten regular season title. They're 16-3 in the conference. 22 points for Jace Richardson. Tonight, number 18 Purdue's at Illinois. South Florida visits number 16 Memphis. SEC women's hoops today. Top overall seed Texas faces Ole Miss. South Carolina battles Vanderbilt. The Gamecocks 5th overall, but the top seed in the tournament. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo in Sasha. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Right now, Kohl's is giving away millions in instant Kohl's Cash in stores for free. Yup, that's right, because the Kohl's Cash Ultimate Giveaway is back. Hurry in to claim yours while supplies last. Plus, you can score 3 days of deals in store and online this weekend. So don't miss out. Head to your nearest Kohl's this Friday through Sunday before it's too late. Kohl's Cash Giveaway valid in store only. Redeemable only that day. Some exclusions apply. Not valid on Sephora at Kohl's while supplies last. Ends March 9th. See store at Kohl's.com for details.
I had the worst dream last night. You were in a car crash and the kids and I were on our own. We had to move out of the house because I couldn't afford it anymore.
That's awful, hon.
My brother was saying he got life insurance from Ethos. With Ethos, it only took 10 minutes and he got $2 million in coverage for around $2 a day. It's all online. No medical exam. He just answered a few health questions right from his house.
Ethos, here we come.
Visit GetEthos.com. That's GetEthos.com.
Sample rate is a 10-year term life policy for 35-year-old healthy, non-smoking male. Billed monthly.
You've heard of smart bombs, smartphones, smart cars, smart watches, and smart glasses. Now you can add smart player, giving you sports gaming strategies and information 24/7. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The only place in football where the offense is always on the field is on Moneyline. With the two best hosts in radio, Donnie Rightside.
If anybody wasn't watching, listen, I don't know what you were doing.
And Kevin Walsh.
Forget act like you've been there before.
On the SportsGrid Radio Network, Sirius XM Channel 159.
Best of every day now officially is underway. It is a Friday right here on the SportsGrid Network, Sirius XM Channel 159, Donnie Rightside. Solo mission as usual here with a lot of hot topics to go over, but maybe none hotter than college basketball. And that slate does start at noon today from Johnson City, Tennessee, Freedom Hall Civic Center, Gardner-Webb, and High Point. So what we're going to do today is I have a couple games picked out for tonight's action, which we're going to handicap those. Also, I want to get you guys scheduled for some of the games today with teams that you might not have even heard of before. Gardner-Webb, High Point, Southern Illinois Drake, Stony Brook, Delaware, teams not really on your radar. Now, am I saying I have ins and outs in each one of those ball games? No, I don't. But sometimes it's just fun to handicap them live on the air just to see if we can find some points of emphasis that make some sense on both sides. Two games that I do like today that are a little bit later, Dayton VCU and Northern Illinois and Central Michigan. So just keep an eye on those two basketball games, which we will get to and have some fun with. And then also take a look at some of those basketball games tomorrow because the lines will start to come out now for those games, but also understanding the principle of there's really good action tomorrow. Last weekend of college basketball high majors before we get to the conference tournaments next week, which most of them will get started on a Tuesday afternoon action. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of high major college basketball action, which leads us right into next weekend's Selection Sunday. It is a great time, no doubt about it, to be alive. So I do have my odds board up here. Also have Ken Palm, trusty. Just remove this thing from my microphone. Now I sound better at this point. But also understanding some of the statistics here and getting a first look because there's a lot of basketball games today. I didn't handicap every game. Picked out a couple, as I said, Northern Illinois, Central Michigan, Dayton, and VCU. But I do want to get to those early games, but clear some of these hot topics out. Guys, NHL fans out here, had Chris Meany on the broadcast this morning with both myself and Ben Stevens on the early line, breaking down the trade deadline and where that goes. Ovechkin scoring goals left and right, looking to break the all-time scoring record, or goal scoring record, I should say, from Wayne Gretzky. That's up in the air. The NBA, which is so interesting at this point right now, and that doesn't mean it's profitable, where you are just playing a guessing game on some of these organizations. Dallas is going to take on Memphis tonight. Memphis has been stinking up the joint since the All-Star break. Dallas is in a complete free fall. Where do we go from there? Who knows? You take a look at some other games out there. We broke this one down. The Phoenix Suns and the Denver Nuggets. That line is 7.5 across the board. Are the Phoenix Suns buying in because Dallas looks like they're in a tailspin and they might be able to make a run to get into the play-in rounds? Or is it fool's gold tonight for the Denver Nuggets and they absolutely smash the Phoenix Suns? How about the New York Knicks taking on the Clippers tonight? That line, average across the board, 7.5 to 8. The Knicks lost yesterday in overtime to the Los Angeles Lakers in Los Angeles. Now have to switch buildings, probably staying at the same hotel. But Brunson got injured yesterday in overtime. He's probably not going to be available. We'll see who's available for both the Knicks and the Clippers tonight. There's a lot of landmines out here. 17-point spread this morning for the Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the Charlotte Hornets. Looks like we're now down to 16s and 15.5s. Good luck on that one. The Cavs blow everybody out, but they're on the road. They're on the road. And in football, as we would say, laying 3 scores. That's incredible. So it might be easier just to take the simple approach and say, maybe you take a little bit of a break for the NBA for a while and figure out some of these things in college basketball. We see the news and notes coming down left and right this morning because in the NFL, time never stands still. And that's no more important than the Cleveland Browns. Would you have guessed it? Myles Garrett says, I don't like this organization anymore. I don't think I want to be here right now, and I want to request a trade. I want to talk directly to Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Cleveland Browns. For only Jimmy Haslam to say, yeah, that sounds good. I'm not meeting with you. So now it's reported that Myles Garrett is willing to sit out games this season to get his point across that he wants out of town. And I believe him. He's got a ton of money. That organization stinks. Both sides come in. Look, sometimes there's always a clear winner. If you are telling me right now, let's just say it's not 2 number 1 picks here. Let's just say it's a team that drafts in the second half of the first round. Let's just say pick 20. You give up a 1, you give up a 2, and maybe let's just say a 4. That's probably enough to get the deal done for Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns. But why would you stop there if you're the Browns? You're restructuring contracts. You're trying to get things on the table. Just meet with the guy. Maybe you can change his mind. Maybe you, Jimmy Haslam, can sell him on a broader picture of the Browns saying, look, stick it out with us for the next year. I'll pay you more money. I promise you'll like the results that you see if maybe we're looking for a quarterback in the draft and the future is here. But if he, talking about Myles Garrett, doesn't want to be in Cleveland, why would you want him there? It's the same concept I bring up with the Vegas Raiders. Now, the Vegas Raiders love Max Crosby, and they signed him to close to $100 million in guaranteed money on his contract. I don't think it's going to equate to a lot of victories for them next year, but that's what they wanted to do. So I look the same way at the Cleveland Browns and Myles Garrett right now, and I say to myself, what are we doing, Browns? If keeping Myles Garrett over the next 2 seasons is going to bring us a deep run in the playoffs, then you do it. Does anybody believe that? Nobody believes that. So now is the perfect time, the height of the market for Myles Garrett, where he's healthy, he's ready to go, and he's dominant. Trade him for a lion's share of draft capital and picks that you can apply to this year's draft and next year's draft and get what you need. Because whether or not Myles Garrett is there right now, this season, next season, you ain't winning jack, Cleveland Browns. Let him move on and push that forward. I'm interested to see if there are any other shoes to fall this weekend. Understand that in the NFL is that we have free agency tampering period starting on Monday. Most of the teams that you find right now that are in a good headspace are making all the necessary adjustments to their roster before they get to free agency so they understand exactly where they stand in the free agent market and how much money they have to spend. Teams like the Cincinnati Bengals don't appear to be doing that. They're saying, okay, Trey Hendrickson, go out and find a trade. Let's just say no trade is available that the terms and conditions that either A, the player wants, or B, the team wants. So therefore, you have a player that wants a new contract. You don't even know what that new contract might actually be, so you have to hold money back. T. Higgins, wide receiver. Doesn't look like they're letting him free in free agency to gauge his interest. So now you're saying you're not going to trade T. Higgins, but also you don't know how much that final contract is going to be. So then that goes on for weeks at a time. All the players are signed up here. By the time you either A, come to an agreement with T. Higgins, or B, say, you know what, you're just going to play under the franchise tag and you're probably going to hold out at this point. See where that doesn't make sense? Those are unhealthy franchises. So this weekend, talking about today, Friday, then Saturday and Sunday, you are going to see a lot of extensions come through on teams that are currently dealing with players who want new contracts. Free agency comes up, teams that have current free agents that they have to get signed, but understanding this, a lot of money is going to start to be paid on Monday, contracts that we haven't seen in the history of the NFL. And like, that player got that much money? How could he get that much? Because why? NFL free agency with a salary cap on the rise is a player's dream. As I told you, you just saw Max Crosby sign for close to $100 million in guaranteed money. Do you know who's next up on the block as a devastating pass rusher to get his money this year? It's Micah Parsons of the Dallas Cowboys. And that's why the Cincinnati Bengals said, you know what, Trey, you're a really good football player. Look at the amount of money people are out here spending is absolutely incredible. We're not going to be able to afford you. We'll see how quickly Trey Hendrickson is on the move as well. But college basketball is the flavor of the day. Let's start analyzing and handicapping next, right here on Moneyline. It's a Friday, right on the SportsGrid Network. There's no better place to be. And we'll be right back after this short commercial break.
We give you expert analysis and information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Any easier and the government would ban us. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg.
This update brought to you by Sky Rizzy. Explore proven results with Sky Rizzy. California Governor Gavin Newsom used the inaugural episode of his new podcast to break from progressives by speaking out against allowing transgender women and girls to compete in female sports. Newsom made his declaration in an extended conversation with conservative activist Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old who built the influential Turning Point USA organization. Overall polling suggests that allowing transgender female athletes to play on women's teams isn't broadly popular. Siemens plans to investigate $285 million in manufacturing in the United States, including 2 new facilities in California and Texas. The U.S. is the largest market for the tech company. The recent investments in the Siemens U.S. manufacturing footprint and the planned acquisition of Altair, a Michigan-based software company, mark more than $10 billion investment in the U.S.
I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
With Progressive, renters can save on protection for the things that make your place yours, even things that don't make sense to everyone.
People always wonder why I don't get rid of my guitar since I never play. But it's like, what if I actually end up taking lessons? Sure, I've had it for 8 years, but if I get rid of it, then what will my New Year's resolution be next January?
Exactly. So bundle your renters and auto and save with Progressive and protect the things that make sense to you. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates and other insurers not available in all states or situations, covered subject to policy terms and conditions.
You don't have to listen to SportsGrid. You can always go out in the woods at night, look up, and wish on a shooting star. Or you can get the winning edge right here. And you won't find any ticks on you the next day. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Let's get to it, people. It's a Friday. It's a handicapping Friday. You know where I stand. I love myself some college basketball. Love to dip my toes in the water and have some fun. We'll get to some of the early games in just a few moments, but let me take a look at 2 games that I picked out that should have some fun. And as we get the party started right now, we're almost time to dance, people. You got to get the flavor up. You got to get the feeling right in the room. You got to sit back and relax, because in less than 2 weeks, we are dancing in March Madness, which brings my attention to the MAC Conference, which hasn't started their conference tournament just yet. Northern Illinois Central Michigan tonight, McGurk Arena, Mount Pleasant, Michigan, which means Central Michigan is home. One thing we know about this league, there's 12 teams. The worst offense in the league, efficiency-wise, is going to play tonight in Northern Illinois. So right off the bat, you might think, okay, Donnie's angle is probably going to be something with Central Michigan and locking up NIL's offense, which is Northern Illinois. Not the case. Hear me out on this one. Sometimes you have to buy into narratives and say, I think I can strike while the iron is hot here. NIU does play with a little bit of tempo. They're not very good on defense either, which is key. So you might be thinking that Donnie's going to be playing an angle on Central Michigan's offense versus Northern Illinois' defense. Normally, you would be correct and might be right, but that's not where I'm going here. Take a look at this. Once again, 12 teams in conference play. Northern Illinois dead last out of those 12 teams in efficiency on offense. Effective field goal percentage is 10th out of 12. That's really bad. The one thing that they don't do all that poorly, maybe the best thing that they do, is they hold on to the basketball. Third in conference play and turnover rate out of 12 teams. That's very good. They don't rebound the ball on offense all that well, and they don't get to the free throw line. So let's take a look at CMU's defense and where this matches up. They're 6th in conference play overall in efficiency on defense, once again out of 12 teams. Effective field goal possession percentage for CMU is about 53%, which is 8th out of 12 in conference. So they don't have a great defense. They don't foul that much, but then again, NIL, Northern Illinois, once again, doesn't get to the free throw line all that much. Here's the key ingredient. Northern Illinois' offense is number 1 at shot percentage from three-point range. 49.7% of their total shots come from three-point range. So if we round it up, half of their shots come from three-point range. The key ingredient here on Central Michigan's defense, they're 11th out of 12th in conference play at chasing you off of the three-point line. So they give up around 43% of their total shots on defense from three-point range. If you take a look at point distribution, right? You say, all right, well, where are we going with this one? Number 1 in conference play is Northern Illinois. At 43% of their points come from three-point range. Number 1 at allowing you to score in MAC conference play from three-point range is Central Michigan's defense. So sometimes you just have to bite the bullet. Understand they're a terrible offense efficiency-wise. They love to shoot the three-point shot. They should get unlimited looks from three-point range tonight. So instead of taking a side or just the total in the game, I'm taking Northern Illinois team total over 64.5 points in that game. It's a 7 o'clock start tonight. You got plenty of time to get ready for that. That's number 1. Where I went over and said, you know what? I think that makes some sense. Number 2, just bring up this game here, and that is Dayton, the Flyers. They're going to be on the road tonight, and they're taking on Virginia Commonwealth, VCU. So you look at Dayton and how they played this year. They lost to VCU early in the year, 73-68 on their home court. And why is their home court important? You see the first 4 games that'll take place in a week and a half live from Dayton. Sometimes those rims, a little bit tough. But let's focus on this game and where this one makes some sense. So VCU comes into play in Atlantic 10 action. Number 1 overall in offensive efficiency in conference play, and also number 1 overall in defensive efficiency. And by the way, their efficiency rating on offense, 119.1. Absolutely spectacular. Effective field goal percentage, number 2 in conference play on offense. The best rebounding team on offense in conference play, it's VCU. So let's get down to the nuts and bolts of this here. VCU plays fast. Dayton doesn't play all that fast. So Dayton on offense, I do think is going to struggle to score. But that's not my action, because VCU does foul on defense, and Dayton loves to get to the free throw line. But let's remove Dayton's offense and VCU's defense, and let's just get the VCU itself on offense, because that's where the action's going to be. I just told you, best efficiency in conference, best effective field goal percentage in conference, best offensive rebounding team in conference. They don't get to the free throw line a ton. Why? Because they love the three-point shot. You take a look here. VCU, 3rd in conference play at almost 46% of their total shots coming from three-point range. 13th in conference play at letting you shoot the three-point shot. It's Dayton's defense. So right there, once again, the focal point being on the three-point line. The tougher part of the 2 handicaps is Northern Illinois is not a good basketball team. We understand that, and they're on the road. So you don't get that home cooking environment. Dayton today is on the road, so VCU is the home team here. So for me, play number 2, another team total. It's a little bit expensive. It's 75.5. VCU's team total to the over. If we can push tempo and get Dayton out of the offense they want to play, which means maybe a little bit more shooting shots here for VCU, I think it makes sense. And as I told you, if the 3 ball goes down, there's nothing you can do to stop it. And if VCU hopefully gets in a tight game with Dayton, who they're pressing it forward, free throw shooting percentage in conference play for VCU, 78% as a team, number 2 in the conference. So if that defense, VCU, who's second in conference on defense at forcing turnovers, can do that, that leads to easy buckets on the opposite end. But if not, as I told you, a very good 3-point shooting percent as a team and a high clip to do so with close to 46% of the total shots coming from 3-point range. So there you go. 2 games handicapped out the door. What we want to do now after the break is set the tone for the early games. There's a game that tips off between Gardner-Webb and High Point at noon today. Then we have a game at 1, a game at 2, 2:30, 3:30, 4:30, 5, 6, 6, 6 before we even get to the night slate here, which we might take a look at. Let's do some afternoon handicapping. Look, these games aren't pretty, but they can still be handicapped, and that's what we do here at the SportsGrid Network. Let's see what we find. Gardner-Webb and High Point up next, right after the break.
Loser is kind of a mean-spirited slur.
But it doesn't have to stick.
Tell them to listen to SportsGrid and fix it.
No, thank you. Later.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
1955 baseball commissioner Ford Frick says he favors legalizing the spitter. The wet pitch includes using saliva or petroleum jelly placed on the ball.
It was hot that day, so I put a lot of grease on my hair and it made the ball do funny things. So I kept doing the same old thing for years.
Gaylord Perry spit his way to the Hall of Fame using the spitter. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
The University of Copenhagen's new AI machine learning model can understand the emotional state of animals just by listening to them. You don't say. With 89.4% accuracy, it acoustically distinguishes positive and negative emotions from 7 different species, including cows. It's a beautiful day. Pigs. Stop stealing my slop. And even wild boars. Have you ever had one of those days? This breakthrough universal animal emotion translator, a game changer for barnyard quality of life. You're standing on my foot. Follow me at G Capalbo on X and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Carver and Lisi.
Where's your long shot, guy?
I mean, it's still probably the same. It hasn't changed. I'm going to actually get some CLV on you right now.
Who's got the CLV? I have the CLV, not you.
You got it, Joe. Who's the best cop? You're the best cop, Joe, all right?
I got the CLV. I got
Who's
the
best
CLV.
Cop?
It's Carver and Lisi with Mike Carver and Joe Lisi. Weekdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. On the SportsGrid Radio Network. Winning is no accident.
You've got to be smart about it.
It takes a plan.
All centered around expert analysis and trusted information.
That's what you get.
Right here.
The Winning Edge. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Friday's payday, people. That's what we like to say around these parts. SportsGrid Network, Sirius XM Channel 159. Yeah, let's get it. Let's get the money out here, people. You know it's out here. Gardner-Webb High Point, first thing on your docket today, coming up at lunchtime. That's what I like to do. It's lunchtime handicaps here. Get used to it, because over the next 2 to 3 weeks, all day action in college basketball. Let's get started. Understand this. High Point in conference play absolutely torched Gardner-Webb twice. Absolutely hammered them. Looking at the line today, and again, it's a neutral court site. Nobody has home court advantage. Line opened up total-wise 155.5. It's down to 153.5. Side factor here, High Point opened up as a 12.5-point favorite. Now we're seeing it go as high as 15.5. FanDuel still hanging in with a 14.5. High Point number one in conference play in efficiency on both offense and defense by a wide margin. Effective field goal percentage, number one on offense and number one on defense. You take a look at the defensive side of the basketball here for High Point against Gardner-Webb's offense. Gardner-Webb, they'll take a decent amount of threes, don't make too many of them. High Point defends extremely well. Number one, however, in conference play is Gardner-Webb inside the arc at close to 55% of their total points coming inside of three-point range. Number fourth in conference at letting you score is High Point. So maybe a little bit of an advantage there. But it really doesn't play out because why? High Point's offense is so efficient and so talented. Gardner-Webb's defense is really bad. 8th in conference play at defense, but also understand this, 8th in conference play at turning you over when Gardner-Webb doesn't turn it over. The one thing that Gardner-Webb does decent on defense is rebound. However, High Point's offense, the best offensive rebounding team in conference play. So whenever you have the best offense and defense, but also the best rebounding defense and the best rebounding offense, that's always going to be an issue. Take a look at the three-point shooting here. 37.4% as a team, good for third in conference play for High Point's offense. Decent defense for Gardner-Webb on defense from three-point range. This one looks to be the part of a blowout. Now, is there an angle for me that absolutely lines up and says this really makes a lot of sense? The only one you could probably theoretically see is maybe a team total to the under for Gardner-Webb. Now, let me just open up my book on this, and we'll see. Because, again, 153.5 sitting here at the FanDuel Sportsbook as the total in this game. Team total for Gardner-Webb is 68.5. Team total for High Point, 84.5. So we're looking at a blowout in this point right now. If I had to lean in any direction, it probably would be for Gardner-Webb's team total to the under. But again, it's really hard to sort of play it out where Gardner-Webb loses today like the season is over. Do they extend that game far more than what it should be with, let's say, 3 or 4 minutes to go? As opposed to if it was a regular season game, it's a 13 or 14-point game. Maybe just hanging back on defense, letting the clock run, letting some young kids get in the game. I don't know if that's going to happen. But High Point should be able to run them over. Now, the one thing I do like, as I talk about multiple times, once you get to actual conference play and conference tournament action, it's the fact that the cleaner half that you're going to get is actually the first half. And you say, well, Donnie, what do you mean by that? Well, nobody's running out the string, right, in the second half. We're not getting any craziness over the final 3 minutes of fouling and extended fouling and getting a little bit lucky there. The one thing you do know is if High Point really has it going on, if they can score 45 or 50 points in the first half, they're not going to stop even if Gardner-Webb has 7 points on the board. You get my drift at that? In the second half, when you're up 15 points, looking to cover a 15-point spread, you're in conference tournament play. Style points don't matter. Just winning the game is and staying healthy. So do your starters come out of the game with 2 minutes to go up 15 points because we don't have to really relax anymore? Well, that doesn't happen in the first half. Starters don't come out of the game up 15 points with 3 minutes to go in the first half. They look to extend that lead at the break. So maybe a smarter play, if you're looking to take High Point, is simplicity. They'll be up over 8.5 points at halftime, which means, let's just say, double digits. Now, you would think that that is a very good start toward your total of 15 being up, let's just say, 40 to 30 at the break. You get the cover there, but there's no guarantee in the second half that you're going to cover the full 15 points for the game. Now, can they? Yes. Can they win by 20, 30, or 40? Sure they can. But I always like to say, like, one of those handicapping strategies, and can work even in college football, professional football, whoever. The cleanest half you're going to get is always the first half. Now, there are extenuating circumstances in college basketball, like, hey, if my superstar player gets 2 fouls in the first 4 minutes, I lose him for the rest of the first half, as opposed to getting the 2 fouls. He's going to play a complete part of the second half because you get 5 for the game. But if you're looking from a High Point perspective, maybe a first half at a minus 8.5 makes a little bit more sense than taking an under on a team total in a game that might be extended in the second half. So we're off and running handicapping. Little High Point at noon, people. Get involved. Sonny Wright's out on a solo mission right here on the SportsGrid Network.
It's easy to get SportsGrid almost anywhere with our mobile app. So give us a break. We're not going to tap your screen for you. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Men's top 25 hoops last night, just one game. Number 8 Michigan State beat Iowa 91-84. The Spartans take the outright Big Ten regular season title. They're 16-3 in the conference. 22 points for Jace Richardson. Tonight, number 18 Purdue's at Illinois. South Florida visits number 16 Memphis. NBA Thursday, the Bulls beat the Magic 125-123. Atlanta scored a 124-118 win over the Pacers. The Celtics hammered the Sixers 123-105. Golden State up by Brooklyn 121-119, 40 points for Steph Curry. The Rockets handed the Pelicans a 109-97 defeat. Overtime win for the Lakers. They edged the Knicks 113-109, 31 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists for LeBron James. Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo and save with Progressive.
That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Right now, Kohl's is giving away millions in instant Kohl's Cash in stores for free. Yup, that's right, because the Kohl's Cash Ultimate Giveaway is back. Hurry in to claim yours while supplies last. Plus, you can score 3 days of deals in store and online this weekend. So don't miss out. Head to your nearest Kohl's this Friday through Sunday before it's too late. Kohl's Cash Giveaway valid in store only. Redeemable only that day. Some exclusions apply. Not valid on Sephora at Kohl's while supplies last. Ends March 9th. See store at Kohl's.com for details.
I had the worst dream last night. You were in a car crash and the kids and I were on our own. We had to move out of the house because I couldn't afford it anymore.
That's awful, hon.
My brother was saying he got life insurance from Ethos. With Ethos, it only took 10 minutes and he got $2 million in coverage for around $2 a day. It's all online. No medical exam. He just answered a few health questions right from his house.
Ethos, here we come.
Visit getethos.com. That's getethos.com.
Sample rate is a 10-year term life policy for 35-year-old healthy, non-smoking male. Billed monthly.
How to tell if you have the winning edge. Take a sheet of paper, crumple into a ball, throw it at a trash can. Even if you miss, so long as you're listening to us, you have it. Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Right back at it, people, here on a Friday, handicapping some afternoon basketball game action. Just got done with High Point. I'm just going to write these down. Just going to track these through. So we've got High Point minus 8.5 first half, and then game number 1. 1 o'clock start today. The Southern Illinois Salukis taking on Drake today in the MVC tournament. So again, tournament action starting and dominating early in the day. If we look at the Salukis, they are getting, let's get out of the first half here. Southern Illinois Drake, neutral court today, opened up at 8.5, now sitting as a 10.5 and 11.5 point favorite, depending on where you're shopping at. Low total in this one. Drake is extremely slow, by the way, guys. 129.5 down to 127.5 to 126.5, depending on where you're actually getting those numbers from. If we line this game up, I told you Drake is really slow, but they are ultra efficient. Once again, Drake in conference play, number 1 on offense in efficiency, number 1 on defense in efficiency. If we line up Drake's offense here, they usually turn the basket. They're not a great basketball team offensively turning it over, which is crazy why they're so efficient. But 12th at turning you over is Southern Illinois. So that sort of placates that. Like, we're not really an up-tempo defense. If Drake can handle the basketball, they should win. Number 1 offensive rebounding team, number 1 defensive rebounding team. I'll tell you what a big difference is going to be in this game, too. Drake's defense is number 1 at conference play at turning over other opponents. Number 9 out of 12 teams at turning your own team over or turning your own basketball over, that's Southern Illinois. That is a main sticking point here. Understand this. Styles make fights again. Drake doesn't launch from three-point range. 11th out of 12 teams in conference play at overall volume, but they make their fair share at about 37% as a team. That's really good. Drake is also number 1 at getting to the free throw line and number 1 with offensive rebounding. That means second chance opportunities, and if you get fouled, you can convert here. Point distribution, which is extremely key. I just told you, they don't rely on the three-point shot, but they can make it, which is good because SIU doesn't defend all that well there. 12th in point distribution out of 12 teams from the three-point line, which means they're scoring buckets efficiently across the board. Point distribution inside the arc, 51% of the total points coming there. That's 4th in conference play. Point distribution from the free throw line, 21% of their offense comes from the charity stripe, which means They're a good basketball team. They win a lot of games. They're converting late in the game if it gets into closer situations. But if we do focus on Drake's defense here, I just told you, Drake can turn SIU over, and that's going to be big. Also, Drake, fantastic at defensive rebounding. That's big here. They do foul a little bit, 9th in conference play out of 12th, but also defend the three-point line. In SIU, they don't look for the three-point shot. So if you're looking at a total, right, neutral court environment, Drake is clearly the better team. That's a low number, 127.5. It is. But if we say SIU wants to play with more tempo, who's going to dictate the tempo in this game? It's not going to be Southern Illinois. It's going to be Drake. And if they're killing them on the glass, which they typically do, Drake, as being a great defensive rebounding team, that helps. But also, from both sides of the equation, where do you see typically, the numbers go off the rails? Splashing three-point shots left and right while you're wide open. These teams are decent three-point shooting teams. I just told you. Style components. 12th out of 12 teams in conference plays at launching from the three-point line. That's SIU. 11th at launching three-point shots from the three-point line. That's Drake. Very close together on both sides here. So this might be one of those games where they're not shooting a lot of three-point shots. The tempo is a little bit slower. Maybe that under does make some sense. And also the buy down, which opened up at 129.5, now down to 127. Because you might be able to take a look at, let's just say, a Drake team total, but you're also talking about, once again, styles make fights at this point. And I just think it works to the advantage of Drake. Do I want to lay the price on Drake at 10.5, double digits in that low of a game at 127.5? Not necessarily. But if I'm looking at this game saying, all right, let me just go back and do a little bit of back checking on the games that they played together. So I'm just going to pull up Southern Illinois' game here, or games, I should say, going up against Drake. Let's see. It definitely was losses here, so we'll go to the red. 75-65, which would go over the total of what we have posted here. And I think that might be the only game that they played Drake this year, as it looks like. They only played Drake one time, and they played Drake at home. And Drake dropped 75 points in that game. So that's interesting to me. And also understand this. Southern Illinois has already played a game, which was yesterday, and put up 86 points in an 86-85 game against Indiana State. So normally I'd say to myself, I probably would want the under. That leads me to believe maybe a little bit higher scoring. Now understand this. When we're taking a look at Drake, they are a slow-moving team. So if we see, let's just say, the final 5 games of the season for Drake, they lost to Bradley 61-59, which is 120 points. They played UIC, which is Illinois-Chicago, 74-57 that game was. That was 131 points. The Northern Iowa game, which went to overtime, guys, 64-58 in OT. That's 122. They played Evansville, 65-61. That's 126. They went to overtime against Missouri State, 68-60, 128 points. If you look at Ken Palm's metrics on this game, Southern Illinois, 71-61, which is 132 points, which would go over. So I'm trying to feed into this because I'll tell you what was interesting. The 2 games previous before that, which was Indiana State, that was an overtime game at 85-81, which is 166 points. The next game was Illinois State at 84-77. That was 161 points in that game. So if we're looking at the slowest team in the country is Drake at 364. So let me just go over quickly here to Southern Illinois. Southern Illinois' adjusted tempo is 136. So if we go into the archives again and just take a look at the teams that pushed some tempo in those games with Indiana State and Illinois State, let me just write those teams down because I tend to remember those. Indy State and Illinois State, because I just want to see on the conference level where those teams factor in. So if we go to tempo on offense, Indiana State is number 1. So therefore, they were able to get them out of tempo. Illinois State, see where they were. Not a real quick tempo there. So if we have today, Southern Illinois, who is upper echelon here in the conference play, you know what? Let's buck the trend today. I know Drake is slow. I know they play great defense. I know it's on a neutral court. I think we go over 126.5. Let's go 1 p.m., 126.5 over, and that's between Drake and Southern Illinois. How about that? Look at that, getting through some games right now. So I'll write that one down because initially I was leaning towards the under. But seeing that if you can get a little bit of tempo there and maybe an extended ball game if we stay within double digits. So we don't have a spread of like 17.5, right? So 10 points. If we're a 10-point game with 3 or 4 minutes to go, we might get a lot of fouls. So I'll lean on the over at that point right now. That's where we'll take that one. All right, let's keep moving. Let's have some fun. Couple games under wraps here. Let's see. Next game on the docket would be 2 o'clock. That's Stony Brook and Delaware. Now, granted, we're not having the greatest, athletic feats here with these teams. Delaware, however, is a 6.5-point favorite, but a total that opened at 149.5 down to 147.5. Just looking at these two teams, Delaware is atrocious on defense. Doesn't defend the three-point line, but lets you shoot the three-point shot. Stony Brook's offense, not good at all. Effective field goal percentage, bad. Efficiency, bad at this point. But they do shoot the three-point shot at a decent clip here. Delaware's offense likes the three-point shot, and Stony Brook lets you shoot the three-point shot. Ooh! We have a little bit of chippiness in this one here. How about that? Stony Brook, Delaware, after the break on a 2 o'clock start from Washington, D.C. Stick with us, baby. Right here, we're handicapping on a Friday, right here on the SportsGrid Network.
You're listening to one of the last places on earth where a man can be a man and not get those looks. Welcome aboard, good sir. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
NBA Thursday, the Bulls beat the Magic 125-123. Atlanta scored a 124-118 win over the Pacers. The Celtics hammered the Sixers 123-105. Golden State cut by Brooklyn 121-119, 40 points for Steph Curry. The Rockets handed the Pelicans a 109-97 defeat. Overtime win for the Lakers. They edged the Knicks 113-109, 31 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists for LeBron James. Men's top 25 hoops last night, just one game. Number 8 Michigan State beat Iowa 91-84. The Spartans take the outright Big Ten regular season title. They're 16-3 in the conference. 22 points for Jace Richardson. Tonight, number 18, Purdue's at Illinois. South Florida visits number 16, Memphis. Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo, and save with Progressive.
That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Huge news. Right now at Wendy's, you can get a Son of Baconator for just $3. I don't think you understand this situation. The Son of Baconator is only $3 for a limited time. You know, smoked bacon, rich melted cheese. That Son of Baconator is only $3. Thank you to whoever wished upon that star. For bacon that just won't quit, gotta be Wendy's.
U.S. price and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Alaska and Hawaii, not valid on a combo or on third-party delivery platforms.
Shopping with your parents can be embarrassing.
Why would they sell jeans with holes in them? I'm going to speak to the manager.
Mom!
That hoodie is giving. You should get it. YOLO.
Thanks to the Chase mobile app, your kid can shop independently while you keep an eye on their spending. So you can go from...
We can be twinsies.
To...
How was shopping? Saw you stayed on budget.
Thanks, Mom. Freedom for kids, control for parents. That's family banking from Chase.
Account subject to approval. Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank N.A. Member FDIC.
When it comes to odds on daily sporting events, it's complicated when you factor in everything from current wind speed to how hot a player's girlfriend is. But you don't have to mess with that. Just keep it here and listen. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Stony and Delaware people, I get excited. 2 p.m. on a Friday afternoon from Washington, D.C. at the Care First Arena. Again, just going over some numbers here. Just brought up the lines. 147.5 is that current line. Delaware is a favorite by 6.5 points in this one. Looking at Stony Brook's offense, it's really bad, but they can shoot the three-point shot. And Delaware doesn't defend it all that well. They're terrible inside the arc, which is fine. shoot a decent free throw here. Talking about Stony Brook. So Delaware doesn't do anything great, and they foul, which is interesting. Delaware's offense is decent. 5th out of 14 teams in conference play, so in the upper echelon per se. Effective field goal percentage, however, is number 2. They don't shoot. Their offensive rebounding percentage isn't very good. They're dead last, actually, at getting second chance points, which you know what that usually means. They shoot a decent amount of three-point shots, and they do. They're 7th out of 14, so right midway in shooting the three-point shot volume-wise. But they're top 4 in the conference at 35% at making those three-point shots. That's an interesting one. And also, when they get to the free throw line, they make their free throws about 78% as a team. So Stony Brook and Delaware. Let me just do some digging here on these two teams. So Delaware, first game of the CAA, the Coastal Athletic Conference. This would be the Colonial, I believe. They are on a losing streak, which they've lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 11 out of their last 12 games, Delaware has lost. Most recently, 88-55. UNC Wilmington absolutely pummeled them. Wilmington's a good basketball team. Wilmington beat them by 10 points in early February and then by 30 in the final game. And by the way, that was a home game for Delaware. 94-84, 78-65, 78-74, 96-91, 75-75. 75-70. They've been competitive outside of that UNC Wilmington game. Last time they took on Stony Brook, they beat them 84-74. Now, let me see if they played Stony Brook twice, or sometimes we don't get those double shots back. So the only game I'm seeing here against Stony Brook was January the 16th. Yeah, so that was it. That's a pretty good look there. 84-74. And looking at the box score in that game, Stony Brook was 8 of 20 from three-point range, and Delaware was 8 of 24 from three-point range. That. So maybe that's something to go off of where that total is high. Now, granted, again, we are looking at a game that is going to be played at a neutral site, so neither team is technically the home team. Game that has played before. Ken Palm has it at 81 to what? 76. 81 plus 76. That's 157. Wow, see that? You see the discrepancy? Sometimes you don't get that big of a discrepancy on these two here, because we got 147.5 as a number. But I think he's right about this one. And again, understanding the fact that where if you are an under player, you're still actually balancing out like what happens at the end of these games. Because I do believe that you might extend it just for a little bit more, an extra possession or two, even if you're down double digits, to see if that could work in your favor. So if we look at that 147, it's a high number in conference play. I know it is. That means you're looking at close to 80-70, which can happen. I'm willing to go over in this game. Let's have some fun with that. So go 2 o'clock game. I'm writing down. That is Stony Brook versus Delaware. Over, and what's the best number that we have on the board here? 147.5. Now, that 147.5 also is down from 149.5. So that should be interesting to see how that one plays out at this point. 2:30 start. Presbyterian. I believe that's the Blue Hose. Let me double check. Yeah, the Blue Hose. Not HOA apostrophe S, people. Get your mind out of the gutter. HOSE. HOSE. On a 3-game win streak. They are taking on Radford. Last time they played Radford, beat them 80-73, so we got some points there. And the game previously before that, they lost to Radford 82-69. This game being priced here at 1. This is crazy. Like, I understand. We're going to handicap this in a second, but I just told you the scores the last time these teams played. 153 points. And what's 82 plus 69? 151 points. How about the discount in this game? Line is 3.5 as a favorite toward Radford. Total's 130.5. Down from 133.5. See, I understand this, though, because the thought process of taking overs sometimes boggles your mind because it's neutral court, only the strong survive, win in advance, and honestly, that's really all you care about. But can you find active strategies on leaning on some totals to the over at this point? Because you do expect to be a lot on the line in a lot of pressure situations. Now, let's handicap these two teams as going off of it. Theoretically, again, Ken Palm's got this at 136 as a final score. And you're looking at 130 across the board. Times are different now, not the regular season. Radford's defense, number 2 in conference play. Presbyterian's defense, number 3 in conference play and efficiency. So right there, you sort of say, that's kind of interesting. It's 9 teams in conference play. Both of these teams are extremely slow, but yet I just told you in the previous 2 games, they've done very well. 3-point shooting, okay, from Presbyterian. They defended decently in Radford, chasing you off the line about midway through conference play, 4th overall out of 9 teams. You look at Radford's offense, which is good. Best 3-point shooting team in the conference at 39%. Presbyterian, decent on defense at defending it, number 3 in conference play, and chasing you off of the 3-point line at number 2 in conference play. See, this is a tougher one because I just told you they had 2 games that clearly went over that total. But in this one, it looks like that 3.5-point drop, or 3-point drop, I should say, from the opening number might make a little bit of sense here because they are slow teams. Like Presbyterian nationally, adjusted tempo, 330th out of 364. Radford nationally, 355. Neither one of these teams wants to push. Last game they played, they beat Charleston Southern, 76-60. But understand this. Let me just see. Who's the lowest? Are they both the lowest in this conference? Let's check in the Big South. Who are the slowest teams on offense? Presbyterian and Radford. That's hard, though. Because, they just don't push the basketball. That's a tougher one to think about. Now, we got one more segment to go. A lot more college basketball on the slate today. Gave you 2 plays earlier on who I was looking at. Then we're handicapping the afternoon action. Let's flip it over to tomorrow. There are some banger games in college basketball that you want to get down on and have some fun with. They're out there in the marketplace. Donnie writes out on a Friday, out to be afternoon, right here on the SportsGrid Network.
This is the place. This is where you'll get expert perspectives and sports gaming strategies 24/7. And it's free. Beat that, you cheap. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The new SportsGrid app is now available on iOS and the App Store. Experience the ultimate sports betting companion that provides personalized content from your favorite hosts. In-depth matchup previews, game and prop picks, live odds, stats, scores, and more. All in one place. And of course, on the SportsGrid app, you can tune into our live television and radio coverage anytime. On the go, wherever you are. Download the SportsGrid app on the iOS App Store now. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Imagine combining the exciting investment opportunity of cryptocurrencies with the power of artificial intelligence to maximize your IRA, 401k, or other investment funds. Listen, if you're looking for ways to accelerate your retirement growth, Block Trust IRA has market-leading strategies and solutions for all levels of investors, from $1,000 to millions. And they partner with Bitcoin Magazine's #1 crypto trading fund in the world to maximize your returns. Plus, their team of IRA specialists is here to help you roll over your IRA or qualified retirement account to the new world of cryptocurrency investments. So make this free call right now to set up your account and learn more.
800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. That's 800-434-5313.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast.
The St. John's Red Storm at 9. Don't give me that funny face, Mike.
I'm trying to figure out where you're going with this.
Well, where I'm going is that I think that Duke, Houston, Tennessee, and for me, St. John's are the 4 best defensive teams in America. I want to know how in God's name they could possibly be 9 on yours.
It's Pharrell Coast to Coast with Scott Pharrell. Weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. On the home of the winning edge, the SportsGrid Radio Network. Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7. Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
College basketball fun, people. So just to go over some action that we're having fun with. VCU team total over 75.5 later today versus Dayton. VCU's the home team. Northern Illinois, Central Michigan game. Ugly, man. Sometimes you got to close your eyes and just say, you know what? I hope it goes my direction. Northern Illinois team total over 64.5. So there's some action I played for a little bit later, but just having fun handicapping some of the afternoon college basketball games. We'll see how they go. High point first half, -8.5. Up double digits here. The expectation for me. The 1 o'clock game, SIU Drake, 126.5. We'll go to the over there. Stony Brook, Delaware, over 147.5. Just some fun on that. But we do have just fantastic stuff, by the way, Saturday. There are so many games being played where conferences are wrapping up their regular season, but also a plethora of tournament games as well in those, lower and mid-major conferences. Next week, the high majors get underway. But you got tomorrow, Kentucky, Missouri, 12 o'clock, Arizona, Kansas, 4:30, which I want to handicap that game. I didn't look at that one yet. St. John's, Marquette, where I do think Marquette knocks off St. John's. I think it's a good spot for them in Milwaukee, noon tip-off there, Eastern. Houston, Baylor, good matchup. Ohio State, Indiana, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Alabama, Auburn, rematch to end the season. I do like Auburn in that game as well. Duke, North Carolina, always a lot on the line, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Mississippi and Florida. Florida's one of those teams I feel like I'm sleeping on a little bit in the NCAA tournament. I have some tickets picked out a little bit later on, 25 to 1s, 30 to 1s. And then, of course, you're looking at Auburn/Duke up top. I just feel like the SEC is so tough that sometimes you bypass some teams. And I feel like I'm bypassing Florida. When I know a lot of people here at the SportsGrid Network are focusing on Florida, and probably rightfully so, I just feel like I've left them out just a little bit, which, again, got the whole week and to take a look at these games. Whole next week while the SEC championship is playing, just to get a real feel on what we're looking at. And sometimes I say this, the teams that I like, I actually don't want to see them win their conference tournament. I want to see them bow out early because that means I'm getting a better price point heading into March Madness. Maybe a little bit tougher path, yes, but price is always what you're trying to focus on. Now, let me look at the Kansas-Arizona game. Two teams I'm certainly not in love with. Lawrence, Kansas, we know the struggles for the Kansas Jayhawks. They've lost now what? Let's just see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 4 out of their past 6 games. They beat Oklahoma State and Colorado, 2 bad basketball teams. They lost to Utah, BYU, Texas Tech, and Houston. Now, granted, is that an easy path, Texas Tech and Houston? No, it's not. But also Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks not used to losing double digits, which they've already lost 11 times this season. They're going to take on Arizona. And Arizona got a high-scoring victory over Arizona State. But before that, losing to Kansas State, losing to Houston, beating Baylor, solid win, losing to BYU by 1 point, beating Utah, losing to Iowa State on the road. Then at home, as we just said, the Arizona State game was 113 to 100. Now they take on Kansas. Let me see here about some of the matchups. Offensively, Arizona is very good. Top 4 in conference play and efficiency. Kansas's defense is good as well. Top 3 in conference play. Also, their effective field goal percentage on defense for Kansas is number 1 in conference play. They don't turn the basketball over on defense all that much, which sometimes can be problematic because when you turn it over, it usually means easy points down on the opposite end. 3-point shooting here. Arizona, not all that impressed. But I think there's 16 teams in the conference. They're 13th at volume, Arizona on offense. 12th is Kansas defense here. So they're, I don't want to say stingy per se, but it's still a decent enough number, but they're not going to rely on it. Kansas really defends from the 3-point line. Kansas also defends extremely well inside wide. They got Hunter Dickinson, true big man there. You take a look at Arizona's offense point distribution, not really caring about the line. 15th in conference play at only 25% of their points coming from the 3-point line, which means they can be versatile. They get to the free throw line, but Kansas doesn't really foul. So this is an interesting matchup for me. And Kansas is at home. Is this one of those games also that you take a look at where it just means more for Kansas because they're trying to get right before the Big 12 tournament? Kansas's offense, however, not very good. 8th in conference play in efficiency, 6th in effective field goal percentage. They turn the basketball over way too much. They don't shoot the 3-point shot all that much, which is interesting. Point distribution, 2nd in conference play at 57% of their points coming from inside the 3-point line. Not a great game. I thought I might have some advantages tomorrow in Arizona and Kansas. Doesn't look like that at this point right now. But there are great games tomorrow to match up with. A lot of high point totals to deal with. But also, people, just get invested in some of these lower level conference tournaments. They won't disappoint. Handicap them and get back to me on Monday how you did over the weekend. That'll do it for today's show. I'll see you back next week. Chris behind the wheels of steel. I'm Donnie Wrightson on another solo mission. Thanks for joining us right here on the SportsGrid Network.
It's easy to get SportsGrid almost anywhere with our mobile app. So give us a break. We're not going to tap your screen for you. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.